Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I have a card as part of the Newton's Nook Designs 2-year anniversary blog hop. They're celebrating 2 years with the release of some exciting products, including their coordinating dies. But for today's card, I'll be using the Summer Scoops stamp set, which does not come with coordinating dies, or does not have coordinating dies. But I will be using it to create an interesting pattern today, and so you see there on the left what I'm going to be trying to make. And I found that this was quite difficult to stamp while on camera because it is important to be directly above it while you're trying to do the spacing. There's not a lot of wiggle room in terms of how wide the ice cream cones are, and they basically barely fit on this panel here. So I'm gonna have to edit a little bit, but the easiest way I found to do it was to draw myself a guiding line down the center so that I would at least have the two center ice creams in the right proportion and distance. And then what I decided to do was, after I had centered the two ice creams, I would then draw a line between them, because I would know then that I wanted the next ice cream to be a little bit closer to that line, the line that's coming down the middle. I want it to be closer to the middle line than to the ice cream that I stamped first, so that way it will give an even spacing all around. I'll be honest, it took me a couple of times to stamp this exactly the way I wanted it, but once you get a feel for it, and that's why I did it on that practice sheet beforehand, it's quite simple. It's just a matter of getting that eye for the spacing. So, try it maybe on some scrap paper first. And I used MFT Black Licorice Hybrid ink because I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring. I am erasing those little pencil guidelines that I made for myself. You're going to want to be 100% sure that your ink is dry before you go in with the eraser, because you don't want to be smearing the lines after you did all of that work and you have it the way that you like it. And so I'm ready to start my Copic coloring. I'm using E31, 33, 35 for the cones, and I actually decided off camera to go in with just a touch of E37 as well, because I wanted to add a lot of dimension to the cones. I want them to really have that rounded effect. I will be eventually adding some more detail to the ice cream, so I did color them a little bit more simply, but since the cones are a large part of the card, I wanted to make sure they had some depth. And so what I'm doing is coming in with my darkest color from each of the sides, so that way it will give it that feel of being rounded. If things are darker on the sides and lighter in the center will appear to be coming towards you and give that rounded effect. And so I went from my darkest color, blended it out with my medium, and then my lightest. Here I'm showing you the hex chart by Sandy Allnack because I use it a lot now to help me pick colors. I find it really helpful to see how the colors relate to each other, rather than just to look at the numbers. And I also like having a little bit of it scribbled out because sometimes the marker caps are quite different than the actual markers. So I do refer to my chart often, and I definitely recommend it if you have even a small collection of Copics. It really helps you to understand what color options you have. For the ice cream, I wanted to go with a pastel sort of color scheme, and my idea was basically to have pinks and a mint sort of green, thinking of strawberry ice cream and mint ice cream, or maybe pistachio ice cream, but just to keep this really soft pastel palette for the ice creams. I for some reason think of pastels when I think of ice cream, even though coffee ice cream is actually my favorite, and so that would just be brown and that wouldn't look as fun here. So I'm taking the R22 and laying it out underneath the syrup, and then I'm blending it out with the R20. And for the G markers, I'm starting with G02 and blending it out with G00. I found these colors to be a little bit far apart, and they aren't next to each other on the hex chart. So I touched the tip of the lighter marker to the darker marker to help me blend it out. I think that's what's useful about the hex chart, is because even though these markers are really close to each other in number, they're not actually as blendable as you might think because of that, and so I did that tip to tip touch. For the sauce that's on top of them, I kind of envisioned it as chocolate sauce, but it could be syrup or any number of things you decide to color it as, but I thought the easiest thing would be to color it as chocolate syrup. I thought about maybe doing caramel, but then it would look pretty similar in color to the cones. And so I, again, referenced the hex chart, and I chose E49 and E77 as two of my darkest. I will admit this was a little bit fussy to do because you do have to color around all of those sprinkles, but I had a very special recipient in mind for this card, so I didn't mind taking the extra time. And again, I'm doing that tip-to-tip blending, taking the lighter color and touching the tip to the darker color. And then I'm going to color the sprinkles opposite. So on the cones with pink ice cream, I'm going to give it the mint sprinkles, and then on the mint cones, the pink sprinkles. I am choosing the sentiment Happy Birthday with sprinkles on top. You can never have too many birthday cards, and most of my family, or a good portion of my family, has birthdays in the summer, so I knew I needed some birthday cards coming up. And so I'm just going to stamp that with some VersaFine ink because I want to make sure that it's nice and dark. On this blog hop, there will be a giveaway, and like I said, this is part of a blog hop, so I will leave you links in the video description below so you can join in on the blog hop, see some other creations with Nook Designs, and enter for your chance to win. To give the ice cream a little bit of something special, I decide to add some Wink of Stella in the clear, and then I'm going to put some glossy accents over it. I've heard a lot of people lately raving about that, saying they really like the way that the glossy accents enhance the glitter on the Wink of Stella. And I find that when you do get the Wink of Stella to dry completely clear, it actually does look really nice. But it can be a little bit tricky to avoid any and all air bubbles with the glossy accents because I'm going to be covering a pretty large surface area. I find that this fine tip helps to keep the bubbles down, and I usually just go in with like the tip of my scissor to poke them because my scissors non-stick. And I also find that if you keep the pressure steady the whole time and don't release the bottle, you won't get as many air bubbles. And so once I've added the glossy accents, I put it on a pink background that I created with the Copic markers, and that's going to be it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafty videos, you can subscribe to my channel. Be sure to follow the link to the Nook Design blog hop so you can enter for your chance to win. Thanks for watching. Bye.